Hey guys, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary. For this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made this cake that we were requested to do for an actual wedding. So this is 100% cake, and it is a fairy garden themed wedding. It was outside on a very hot day, so that's why most of this footage is inside. Chocolate doesn't work outside. So let's get right to it. First thing we need to do is make our edible mushrooms. Now I'm just using gum paste. Straight gum paste for this. What I'm doing is the inspiration photo they showed us for the mushrooms were very tall stemmed mushrooms with a few shorter stemmed ones in there. So I made sure to make these nice and tall, and I put a little water on the skewer so that the gum paste sticks to it, and just rolled out that log. It didn't need to be perfect because in nature nothing's perfect, so there's a few indentations in there. It's fine. I set that to the side, and then I'm making the mushroom cap. Now you just make this into a flattened cone. I went ahead and used my ball tool to indent a little indentation in the middle because that's where your stem is going to be inserted. And then I'm using my Dresden tool to just add some texture. You know, now the bottoms of mushrooms have that kind of corrugated, not corrugated, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, textured. It's textured. It has those lines. I don't know what they're called. I'm not a flower person. Not real flowers anyways. So I'm just adding a lot of texture in there because with gum paste, sometimes you have to go over it more than once. It kind of smooths itself out. You kind of have to go back in and let it know that, no, I mean it. I want this in there. So go back and redefine those lines. And then I am adding some texture to the outside edge also, a little bit. Adding a few little indentations. And I showed you that really fast. Hopefully you saw it. And I didn't show you how I made all of them because you don't need to see all that. That would take forever. I'll show you how I make one, and then you get the idea. And I just add a little water to the end of the stem and stick the cap right on there. And do that for all of them. Let's just speed right through these. But you can see I have different sizes. More tall ones than short. The short ones are just for a little bit of added visual interest. Now I'm going to make some edible moss. I have done this a couple times already, and I will link the recipe in the description box. But this is 100% edible, and you just mix up the the whole eggs until they're lightened and fluffy. Add your granulated sugar, and then add some honey, your food coloring of choice. You don't have to do this to make moss. You can do this to make other just different abstract decorations if you want. And I added a little black in there just to give it some more depth. They wanted that deep green. So I used forest green and then a few drops of the black. And just kind of let it mix because you want to incorporate the air. That's where you get the mossy texture from. And once you've let that mix for a while, go ahead and sift in your flour and your salt. And fold that in because you don't want to push out all that air that you just incorporated into it. So just fold it in gently. And I put it in 2 separate bowls. Make sure they're microwave safe. Add some saran wrap to the top and put them in the microwave for no longer than 2 minutes. And we have our 2 different pieces. Now I did go back and made a little bit more. I realized I thought I was going to need more, but it turns out 2 would have been fine. But we have more for later. We froze it. We're going to use it later. But that's what it looks like before you tear it into pieces. And now we're going to add some color to our mushrooms. You can't really see it so good in this lighting. I have some artificial lighting in the studio and with my studio lights. It can be a little bright sometimes to see this kind of detail. But I'll show you a picture where you can see how it looks a little bit better. But focus in on those indentations and around the bottom edge. And here you can see all the different colors, a little bit better. I did purple, pink, and some beige, tan, or light brown, whatever you want to call it. Now we're going to speed through the frosting of these cakes a little bit here. There's a lot of cakes, a lot of footage on this, but you don't need to see it all. We'll just hit the main points here. And we're using my Crusting American Buttercream, which I will link the recipe in the description box, and I'll try to put a card on here to a video on how to make it if you want to make it yourself. And you don't have to worry about getting it super smooth, because we're going to add that texture to it. They wanted a very light horizontal texture. So instead of using the comb, I opted for just using the small spatula. And all I'm doing is holding it in one space and just spinning it. You want to make sure you put enough buttercream on there so you can remove some, but not so much that it's drooping on you. And I left that rough edge. Now we're going to make our bark, quote unquote bark. I'm just using almond bark is what I'm using for this. Chop it up in small pieces. Rough chop it. Then put it in a microwave safe bowl. I like to use the glass. And melt it on 30-second intervals or a minute at 50% power until it's nice and smooth. And spread it out on a piece of parchment paper that I measured roughly the height and the width of the cake, the bottom tier. I didn't show you the frosting of the bottom tier because it's just a straight up, just a coating. It didn't have to be perfect because this is going to go on top of it. But since it's almond bark, I didn't have to worry about tempering. People ask me all the time, is this tempered chocolate? No, I'm not good at it. So that cake definitely needed to stay in the refrigerator until they brought it out for the couple to cut it. So I'm just removing the excess. You want to let your chocolate sit for a little bit so that it's not running right out of the pieces of parchment paper. Like I said, I measured the height and the width and doubled the width to make sure I had enough. I didn't let this sit as long as you could have to roll it up. You want to roll it up before it starts firming up, but you want it to be soft enough that you can roll it. Does that make sense? And then pop it in the freezer. And here I'm showing you my new airbrush, my cordless airbrush that I absolutely love. And I'll link in this description box again where you can purchase one of these. This is fantastic. You just charge it up and it's ready to go. And all the attachments on it are fantastic because they have lids on them and there's different sizes. So you can put as much or little of your airbrush color in there as you want. And the couple wanted it to be a kind of sparkling champagne color instead of this bright white. So I used a champagne colored gel food coloring, I think it is. And I thinned it down with some Everclear so that it was able to be pushed through my airbrush because it kind of thickened up a little bit. That's what they do over time. If it was brand new, it probably wouldn't have done that so much. So I just thinned it down. And I'm just spraying that all over each tier. Again, I'm just going to show you on this one. And just know that I did this to all of them. And then I have some champagne dust that I am squirting out of this little pump spray onto the whole thing. So there you can kind of see it a little bit better. A little bit of that sparkle. I did that to each tier and popped them back in the refrigerator. Now our chocolate has firmed up. I left it overnight. This is the next day. I probably could have left it in the refrigerator a little less time because it was kind of hard to get it off the parchment paper. All it really needs is maybe an hour or so to firm up, if that. It was one of those things I thought, it'll be fine. It can sit overnight in the freezer. It's not going to hurt it. I should have put it in the refrigerator because it got some of those kind of white spots on it too. But that just added extra interest. We'll say extra interest to the cake. Nobody would know. And it actually kind of went away when it kind of came to room temperature anyway. And so here's our bottom tier. And I am attaching it to the finishing board. I had put 2 cake drums together, glued them together with super glue. I have a piece of tape in between, and I'm looking underneath to make sure that it's centered, and then just flip it over. Guys, that's the easiest way to do it. And now I'm marking out my 5 points of the star, where I'm going to put my main supports. I like to do 5 of the stronger dowels, plastic dowels, cut them all down to the same height, and then do some of the plastic bubble tea straws in the middle for extra support. And just pop those into the points of all of the star. Sometimes you need a little help to coax it down there. And then when I'm stacking, I like to put these middle ones in there and then pull them back up again. Because when you pull them back up again, the hole is kind of pre-drilled. Let's say it's just pre-drilled. Put a little buttercream on there, and then you can put your next tier on it, which is chilled. You can put your next tier on there, and the weight of the cake that you're putting on, with a little bit of help, will push those middle straws down. Since it's kind of pre-drilled, it doesn't take as much force to get them to sink back down again. And then fill in the gap. Now we're going to go back in with the airbrush and reinforce that color. Not reinforce it, but add some more airbrush and dust to where we had to caulk them to fill, I call it caulking, buttercream caulk them to fill in the gap so that it would be seamless. And my hands are clean and dry. I prefer to use a scraper to blend in the caulking, but as you can tell, there's a raised edge on each tier, and I'm not going to be able to get my scraper in there, so I had to use my finger. And then I have a sharpened dowel. I just sharpen it with a pencil sharpener, and I measured it ahead of time to make sure that it's about 1 inch to 1.5 inches shorter than the cake so that it sinks down below. And I just use a mallet to hammer it in there and then fill in the hole. And now I'm just attaching with buttercream the chocolate bark. I liked this piece, but it broke in half, so I just stuck it back together. That was probably my best piece. I'm like, I'm not gonna waste that. And when I attached the bark, I kind of varied it up a little bit. I didn't want each piece to be cut flat on the bottom. I wanted it to look a little bit more organic. And then some of them, I had the curve facing outwards, and some of them I turned them towards the cake to add some more interest that way too. Then you can, like on this one, you can do one piece and then add a shorter piece underneath it. Because if you just have straight up perfect shards of chocolate, it's not going to look organic. This is where the matchy-matchy side of me struggles against the organic side of me. We'll just do this all the way around the cake. Now I had plenty of extra bark, but you'd rather have too much than not enough. And then I wanted to add the edible moss around the cake board, so I just am brushing on some piping gel, clear piping gel. And the moss will stick right to that. You don't want to put the piping gel on there and let it sit too long because it will dry out a little bit. You want to put the moss on it when it's tacky. And I'm just breaking up the moss into smaller pieces and just sticking them right to it. And I knew I was going to put some ribbon around the bottom, so I know you're not going to see that raw edge when we have the finished product. And then I wanted to fill in some of the holes with some of the moss. So I just piped in a little bit of buttercream and then stuck the moss to it. Then add some in between the tiers. I knew we were going to finish it up when we got to the venue. So that's where I decided right there, let's just wait with those mushrooms until we get to the venue. So here we are at the venue. Whoa, that was a nice face. Sorry, I didn't realize I was still in there. Wow, creepy. So we have our already assembled cake, and yes, I did carry this all the way in. My boss usually does that because she's young and stronger than me. But she damaged her thumb. She slammed it in her car door really bad. She's gonna, that nail's coming off for sure. So I'm the one that hoofed it in there. And we were going to just leave it in the refrigerator because of the chocolate. And then they were gonna carry it out for the reception because everything for this wedding was outside. It was 90-something degrees that day. So I just assembled everything on it and then put it in the refrigerator. So there was a lot of carrying this cake around. There she is. Can you see her purple thumb? Oh, poor thing. Anyway, she can't stay out of it. She wants to decorate too. Bless her heart. So we did a swag all the way around and kind of wrapped around. It's hard to see all of it because the natural light was coming in that window and then it was really dark on the other side. So I wasn't able to just kind of give you a wraparound view of the whole thing. But we're just attaching those flowers with some buttercream. And there's a lot of chatter going on between us. So what do you think we need here? What do we think we need there? But here is the final finished product. I loved those barrels in the background. That was purely by accident. We were just looking for the best lighting. And here is the cake at the reception as the couple was cutting it. Now I'm going to attach the link for the photographer. I did not take this picture, but I hope you liked it. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.